When you think about the Last Supper, probably one and only one image comes to your mind. The masterpiece wall painting of Leonardo da Vinci in Milan. And let's be fair, it is so famous for a good reason. The emotional turmoil of the apostles when they hear the shocking news that Jesus delivers is so dynamic and deeply humane. But my problem here is this. Can you think of any other painting of the Last Supper? The topic has been a frequent go-to in Christian art for centuries. Still, for the average art history fan, other depictions of the topic are obscure and lost in the fame of the Da Vinci mural. And I don't like that. So for this video, I decided to pick 4 other depictions of the Last Supper to show you and show that there is more to appreciate in this topic. And hopefully, by the end of this video, next time when somebody tells you that they saw the Last Supper up close, you can pretentiously say, which one? Welcome back to my channel. And let's talk about the Last Supper paintings you probably should know. First off, before getting into the paintings, let me quickly retell the story of the Last Supper. The Last Supper refers to the Last Supper of Jesus with his apostles, and in different Gospels, you get different sets of events. And the thing is that a few key things happen during this Last Supper. And Da Vinci's painting is only showing one of these events, the most dramatic one, when Jesus tells everyone that one of them is going to betray him, pointing out Judas. Which is why you can see the looks of shock and doubt and thinking about who it could be on the faces of people in Da Vinci's painting. Another thing that happens is that Jesus feeds the apostles pieces of bread and wine, which would be the Eucharist, and he washes the feet of each of the apostles at the end. So the depiction of any of these events counts as the depiction of the Last Supper. We can see such depictions as early as the 6th century, both as wall paintings and then as illuminated books. And by the time of the Renaissance, which is when Da Vinci painted his version, the Last Supper was a common Christian motif to recreate in religious places. And you can easily see that many of the later Last Supper paintings are very influenced by Da Vinci's work. And actually all 4 of the paintings that I chose to show you today are from after the Da Vinci painting. And with that, you know what? I'm not going to say that joke. That's super cheesy. I wanted to say I've set the table for us to get into the work, but I'm not going to say that. I'm better than that. So let's get into it. I've put my favorite first. This is the Last Supper by the Italian artist Tintoretto. Tintoretto is one of the most famous artists of the Mannerist movement of Italy, and this painting is one of his last ones, painted around 1594. And it's like a total opposite of the Da Vinci one. Take a look at the composition. We have the same old long table with everyone crammed on one side, but it's not dead flat in the painting anymore. It's more off to the side, and we can see much more detail of a normal night in a tavern. There are other people at their own tables. Servers are taking empty plates, bringing food around. This lady in the foreground is offering some food, and there is a cat leaning over her basket. So it's people living their lives. But still, although the table is pushed to the side, going deep into perspective, in the middle of the image, we can see Christ. But not everything is normal. The lighting in the painting is so jarring. There are 2 main light sources, one light hanging from the ceiling and a brighter source, which is Christ's halo. The light from his halo is giving so much life and dynamism to the setting. And in the upper portion of the painting, near the ceiling, you can see many angels hovering midair. In this case, we can see the events of Christ feeding the apostles. I love this painting because of how it is so realistic and fantastical at the same time. The whole depiction of the tavern inn grounds the event into something that just casually happened. But at the same time, with the lighting and the angels, it gives it that spiritual significance that it needs. And it uses the familiar tropes in a new way. And that's actually a part of what defines the Mannerist style. If you want to know more about Mannerism, I've actually made a dedicated video about it. I'll link it here. check it out if you want after this video. The second one I chose because of the controversy around it back when it was painted. The painting is not called The Last Supper, not anymore. The title of this painting is The Feast in the House of Levi. It's painted by another famous Renaissance painter, Paolo Veronese, and it's painted about 20 years before Tintoretto's Last Supper. And the story behind it goes like this. Veronese was commissioned to paint a Last Supper for a Dominican church in Venice to replace another Last Supper painting that was destroyed by fire. So he creates this painting. He has tried to do almost the same thing as what we saw in Tintoretto's painting. He's tried to paint this super important spiritual moment in the middle of a normal, real, not that spiritual setting. We can see the events of the Last Supper in the center of the image with Judas looking back worried and uncomfortable. Well, this painting did not make some powerful people happy. Back then in Venice, there was a powerful religious court called the Holy Office that had the mission to find and punish heresy and sacrilege and things that didn't sound Catholic enough. It was like the thought police of the Catholic Church. And so this Holy Office didn't really enjoy seeing the Last Supper happening among a bunch of fat, rich, drunk dudes. So they took Veronese to court and they ran an investigation to see if he has committed heresy. Finally, they asked for major revisions on the piece to make it more fitting to the Last Supper. But instead of changing the painting, Veronese changed the title and description of the painting. He said, you know what? Actually, this isn't the Last Supper. It is the Feast in the House of Levi, which is another event from the Bible where Jesus goes to a feast full of tax collectors and sinners. So this painting is interesting for me not because of anything specific in the painting itself, but how it shows the creative limitations that such authoritative control can create in arts. Alright, 2 down, 2 to go. Perfect time to remind you to kindly press the like and subscribe buttons under the video if you've liked the video so far. In this channel, I talk about different topics around art history, art philosophy, theory, and media. And in general, stuff that pique my interest. And so if they pique your interest too, a sub would be super helpful. Thanks. Now off to the next one. Next up, the Last Supper painting by Nikolai Ge, the famous Russian painter. He painted this during his trip to Florence sometime around 1863. His take on the topic is so unique and it doesn't fit our expectations of what a Last Supper should look like. That's why there was a lot of debate about this painting when it was first exhibited in Russia. What is so interesting for me in this painting is first this exact unique approach. I like it whenever I see a historic religious painting and I have to figure out what scene it is portraying. Instead of recognizing the painting at a glance that it is a Last Supper, in this one, first the mood of the scene gets you. The somber tone of the image and the play of light and shadow immediately capture the viewer. And then you get to figure out why that feeling is there. You start recognizing Christ on an armchair, head down, deeply sad. Everyone around him looks at a dark shape to the right of the painting with shock and disbelief. It took me a second to figure out that this dark shape isn't a demon, but a person. It's Judas. And the fact that his figure is covering the light from our view puts us, the viewer, in the shadow, in the darkness. And so it's like Jesus is disappointed in us as well. And that sort of deeper use of elements to build on the symbolism of light and shadow in such a way is another reason I wanted to talk about this painting in this video. And so let's go off to the last one that takes a much more unique approach in the form of the Last Supper. This is the Sacrament of the Last Supper by the one and only Salvador Dali. And I included this painting here because of how shocking the mix of a classic religious subject and the modern surrealist style can be. Dali painted this painting more towards the later parts of her career, during a time when he had rediscovered religion. Although this isn't my favorite religious Dali painting, that would be Madonna of Port Eget, but still this rendition of the Last Supper scene is one that I won't forget. The depiction looks like a futuristic post-apocalyptic space. The figures aren't resembling anyone specific. Dali has used perfect mathematical proportions in everything here, and he has put a strong emphasis on the number 12, that is considered in many cultures as a sacred number. 12 apostles sitting in a room shaped like a dodecahedron, the 12-sided spherical shape. And in general, based on his own comments about the work, what he was aiming to portray wasn't directly a depiction of the event of the Last Supper, but a depiction of the Christian sacrament of the Holy Communion. So what I like about this painting is the contrast between classic subject and a very modern style, between a religious topic and a futuristic setting, and the contrast between the expectation we have of the Last Supper painting and what we actually get. So these were only 4 examples of Last Supper depictions that I thought could be more memorable, each offering a different, more or less hidden aspect of the topic in historical context, form, style, and creativity. If you have a favorite Last Supper that you think is underrated, tell me that please in the comments. It's just something that bothers me when one work gets so famous that it just overshadows all other works. And that happens a lot in many other topics too. So if you like the concept of this video, looking at works that might have gone under the radar because they weren't in the spotlight as much as others, tell me in the comments. I could make other videos talking about other concepts and their depictions like this one. And of course, you know about the lonely subscribe button on the bottom of this video. Subscribing is the best way to support the channel. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.